Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Abhi Nerukar, and I'll be presenting today. Today's presentation will be on saying goodbye to EPMA. Again, I am with EPMware, and I think we've got a few folks on the call. Let's just get into the presentation. Just want to let you guys know a few updates here before we get into the presentation. We have a question and answer chat box over here, so we will be able to grab a few questions towards the end of the call. So you can just put your name in the question and answer, and we'll be able to answer a few questions at the end of the call. We will be sharing some of these slides towards the end of the presentation, and we should be publishing this presentation online on the website as well. So feel free to come visit the website afterwards, or I'm sure we'll be sending this links to the presentation out afterwards directly to your email. So thanks everyone for joining. It's if you have been exposed to EPMA, we're definitely sad to see it go. And today, what we want to do is talk about some of the options that we have now that the upgrade to 11.2 is upon us. So today we want to be able to inform you guys of what's coming, what we've heard, and some popular options for metadata management, and some considerations for post-upgrade from 11.2. So again, some of the information that we have may be changing, and so we'll keep you posted on things that we're a little unclear of, but we'll try to give you the most up-to-date knowledge, and we'll try to update our blog as well on what we know. So without further ado, let's get started. So just to give you guys a background, we want to let you know what EPMware is. And personally, my background has been in the Oracle Hyperion space for roughly about 15 years, a little bit of SAP. I've started EPMware with a few co-founders that are also on this call, Tony Karatzis and Devin Shah. And the product EPMware started with the vision of building a metadata management and a data governance software that would bring the business user a little closer to their metadata. What we've done differently than some of the other popular solutions out there is we've built target system adapters to make sharing hierarchies a very effortless process, and be able to enforce data governance at the same time. So what EPMware really allows you to do is it is a software. It's available on the cloud. It's available as an on-premise solution as well. And it allows you to manage your metadata for on-prem and cloud products. It also allows you to deploy that metadata directly to your target application as well. So it's a source of truth for enterprise master data. We are primarily used for financial master data, but at the same time, we are seeing an expansion now out into customer vendor masters, data warehousing solutions, and so on. So that's basically what we do. We have replaced a series of DRM implementations already. Same thing goes for EPMA. And so now with the shift into 11.2, we want to keep you guys posted on what are the popular features and functions that are available, and what are the considerations that we should be going towards. So a little bit about our company here. Again, we are available as an on-premise and AWS SaaS offering We do consult on EPMware as well as many other partners that we have that offer EPMware consulting, systems integrators. And then, of course, support is very common to what you see out for big box software solutions, 24/7 support. We also offer end user and admin training, and there's a few partners out there that are offering EPMware training classes as well. So just a few EPMware customers. So we're getting our name out there, and it's been quite a challenge working our way up from a small startup to an organization that now has some pretty big names on the board. So we're definitely looking forward to continuing to grow and bringing our customers solutions that are the most critical and what they need and when they need it. So topic of the day, EPMA is gone from version 11.2 on. So, if you guys have used EPMA just as I have, you may have held some very angry feelings about it in the past. I know for me, when the product first came out, it was great to see something that could manage metadata between our various applications. And we were kind of locked into it. Once you were EPMA application, it was tough to not be an EPMA application. We went through a series of challenges of managing metadata between shared applications and whether to be a local application. And it was a good product and a great idea when it was out there, but unfortunately when it first came out, it had some pretty major issues, and those major issues were pretty big. It was sometimes our metadata would disappear, and it was tough to accept that when you were creating a solution for a production application. So ultimately the product did become quite stable and was a pretty popular option to be used, but still a lot of folks were turned away by the instability of it. Now, after about 10 years, we're moving on to 11.2, and in 11.2, EPMA is no longer an option and will not be available. So 11.2 is supposed to be released in September 2019-ish. We take that with a grain of salt. The date could be pushed. I would probably wait for some further announcements around Oracle Open World to find out exactly when it's going to be deployed or available, or when it's going to be ready for prime time. So today's agenda really is planning for the change. Now, there's a lot of customers who are out there who are thinking about going to 11.2. Maybe they're on the on premise and they're thinking about going to add cloud, but they're not quite ready to take everything that they have and push it directly out to the cloud. So while they're staying on prem, it's probably a wise idea to go to 11.2 because we'll probably get to the latest and greatest features and functionality, and it's probably going to be the latest and greatest option out there for on-premise implementation. So, probably a good idea to get out there, maybe not in September, but, shortly after. It's definitely something that you want to plan for in 2020 to understand how you're going to get there if you're not going directly to the cloud in one shot. So, things that we want to think about as we plan for this change. What are our options for metadata management after the upgrade? So on day one, what exactly happens? What are my options? What do I have to do? Number two is, do we currently use EPMA interface tables as an organization? So, we'll discuss that in a little bit based on, some of the info that we have. But it is a pretty important consideration that we want to think about. The next one is, what do we have to rebuild to get EPMA-like features back? Now, a lot of those were very important, direct deployment and validations, and we'll discuss those in a minute. is Oracle Cloud on our future roadmap? And so that really goes back to just the conversation we just had recently, is that, a lot of customers that we speak to are very actively going to PBCS and FCCS. But at the same time, if your current landscape is quite large and you have a number of different S-Base cubes, or you have planning applications and HFM, maybe you're not thinking that you want to take everything over to Oracle Cloud in one shot. You may want to first start out with PBCS or go to OAC and phase that implementation process out. And then finally, are there any data governance requirements? So when we say data governance, we really refer to your review and your approval process for managing metadata. So now historically with EPMA, there really weren't any data governance capabilities. A lot of the data governance was handled directly with emails. We've seen folks have SharePoint type of solutions. So that's something that we want to think about in the future. As we think about a long-term metadata management strategy, is are we going to stay on-prem? Are we going to add some cloud? And then what do we need for review and approval processes going forward? So just to recap and reminisce over the last 10 years, we loved EPMA for the features that were here. Again, we don't want to get into why we didn't. We're sad that it's going away, or maybe some of us aren't so sad. But the shared library was good. We were able to share application metadata and dimensions. We were able to maintain them in one hierarchy. Specifically, I worked on a solution where we were able to use a shared hierarchy with set as base functionality, and it was pretty good. It allowed us to make a metadata change from multiple applications in one place, and then have that push out. There were certain restrictions over there when it came to member naming convention. So it was a good way to start to get some centralization for your applications, but there were some limitations. Now, the next way to use EPMA was really our local application view. This allowed us to individually maintain applications, and it was primarily due to large metadata differences. And large metadata differences are something that are pretty common to Hyperion applications. I mean, you might have different levels of granularity in one application versus another, and the only way to really handle that was to just understand what your changes were, and then be able to move those into your different applications locally. And so at least it was a good way to visually see what you were going to add and make changes into a certain view before you push that out into your target app. Now, another great feature that I loved personally was the ability to validate applications and understand property settings that were invalid for our target application. So this means that when I created an application or I made new metadata changes, EPMA had a large number of built-in validations that made sure that deployments didn't fail. And so you can run a validation in the EPMware application library, and it would validate a large number of validations, which was really a neat feature and something that classic applications lack, because when you took an application in classic mode and you just tried to dump the metadata in there, you were just faced with a series of errors. And then, traditionally the way to validate was just to keep bouncing your metadata against the classic app and just keep filtering through the error message. So this was great to actually run a validation to understand, what was going to fail first, and then make those changes before actually pushing a deployment, and which is very, very helpful with production. Now, next one was compare applications. And this was also pretty good. This was able to show us if our metadata was out of sync with the production application. Now, the good thing here is that, when you had an EPMA application, you weren't able to actually go into the application itself and make some changes. I'm pretty sure with Essbase, I think you may have had that capability. I just don't remember, but I remember specifically with HFM, it was pretty ironclad. You just weren't able to upload a metadata file directly in unless you converted it back to Classic. And then, of course, the last one is direct deployment. So that allowed us from our EPMA application library to just simply click a button, push that metadata directly to the target application without having to really mess around with any flat files. And I think that was, one of the best features that EPMA brought to the table. So now, when we go to 11.2, Oracle is offering a DRM Light type of solution, or actually a DRM Light that's going to be included with 11.2 to be able to manage your on-premise metadata. So what's included with this? So you're able to manage your Oracle Hyperion on-premise applications only. So remember, this is it's a limited use license that you're getting, and so I think the restrictions here are to be able to give you some EPMA type of functionality to keep you to give you the functionality to be able to manage your metadata with those applications. Data relationship steward roles are limited to about 5 users. There are going to be a series of migration processes or a utility, I believe, that'll help us get our metadata into DRM. The details of that, we're not really sure, but I think we're gonna, just keep updating our blog with, how you can get your metadata into DRM, and hopefully you can compare, different options when it comes time to do so. So what is not included if you go with this option? So reading or feeding from any other application or data warehouse. Now this is something that EPMA interface table folks may not like, but this is a limitation for the DRM Light option. DRG is not going to be included. So this is data relationship governance. It's another product that's used in conjunction with DRM, and it allows you to have review and approval capabilities. So if I'm a user and I create a new member, I can put it through a review and approve process where they can come in and interact with that metadata before it goes to DRM. And so it's another on-premise product that interacts with DRM. It is a separate purchase typically. So, not surprised that that it's excluded. DRM Analytics as well. It's another product that provides analytic capabilities on metadata for DRM, also not included. Also, unlimited use of all features and functionality. So DRM, the full licensed version, does actually allow interface table imports, exports to non-Hyperion application. It is a metadata or technology agnostic product as well. So, there are a large number of customers out there that are not only using this for Hyperion metadata management, but metadata management for various financial and non-financial applications as well. So it's been around for quite some time, and that's basically it. So next is the unknown. And so here, when you upgrade to 11.2, our assumption is that the applications will be automatically converted into Classic. Now, this is not something that we're 100% sure of. We're hoping that that's the case, but we're just leaving it out there that, there is a possibility that we may need to convert applications to Classic. So, we're leaning like 80% that it's probably going to be a Classic application once you do the upgrade to 11.2. But again, this is something that we're just waiting to, hear a little bit more of before, we really think about what the processes or the steps are in choosing the right solution. So why is this important? If you have to migrate your applications directly to Classic, you're going to want to think about the steps in doing that. There is a way to migrate your applications just by flipping a little switch. What I think we'll probably cover in another webinar, and convert that application over to Classic. It involves some import exports of LCM and building a new Classic application. But that is a process that's also available in EPMware. So we'll definitely put that in a future blog. We have talked to a few customers who are thinking about migrating this application to Classic prior to doing the upgrade, just to minimize risk and to be able to focus on the 11.2 upgrade outside of what they're going to do as far as metadata management and data governance goes. The upgrade to 11.2 does have a few other changes, particularly like workforce planning is not available anymore. And I believe it used to be a EPMA only application. So, there are a few other larger considerations to think about. And I'm sure, you can get those on the Oracle site, all the different changes that are going to come out from that. Also, I think the case scope presentations have pretty thoroughly covered what are the different changes. But again, as we get into September in the open world, I'm sure we'll get some more details on that. So another solution, of course, that is available, big surprise, is EPMware. And so, we wanted to also educate customers that in addition to the DRM Light that's available, EPMware is also a solution that's available for on-premise and cloud metadata management. So just like DRM was on, EPMware is also technology agnostic. You can create any type of application in EPMware and manage it. Now we do things a little bit differently. We built plug and play adapters to all Hyperion cloud and on-prem applications. So out of the box with EPMware, you're able to manage those applications. It is a one-click integration process. You're simply typing in your user ID and password, and you can import those applications in. And it's got all the intelligence built in to be able to understand what application type it is, what it's using. And so all the default features and the validations are also built in. EPMware also does come with a data governance platform built into it. So it is a metadata management software as well as data governance platform. So it allows your business users to come into the app, create a brand new request for metadata, put it through the review approval process, whatever you decide, and then push it out to the target application. So the EPMware application does also have direct deployment to supported applications or interface tables. So you can either read from interface tables to source metadata and then push it through EPMware, and you can then push it out to an outbound interface table as well for subscribing applications. So you have a choice. You can go with the adapter-based method. For some applications, you can push out to interface tables. For other applications, and you can even go push out to flat files for any type of subscribing application. So regardless of whether it's Oracle Cloud or Oracle on-prem, you can use it as a central data governance and master data management hub. What is not included with EPMware is number one, per node fees. We don't charge by individual node. We charge by technology that we integrate to. And then also, we do not have a limited use license. And that basically means that it is a paid software, and we do need to either subscribe to the a SaaS solution, or we can purchase the on-premise solution. So a few upgrade considerations. So a big one that we briefly discussed before was the EPMA interface tables. EPMA interface tables originally allowed us to source metadata and automate metadata loads from external systems. Now, I think this is with the read and feed not being allowed with DRM, this goes away. And I think we've got to figure out, a new solution to be able to deal with this. And so if you have a large landscape, chances are you may have implemented this. But what this really allowed you to do is build a fully automated approach to be able to, number one, source your metadata from any external system and load it to the EPMA interface tables. And you can see from some of these screenshots how we've mapped metadata. Like you can pick what column you put your entity in and then where you mapped it to in EPMA. And so this was a great automated method to sourcing metadata externally. And so to further automate it, there were API calls that we use for EPMA to be able to even execute deployments out to the target application as well. So definitely something that you should think about if you're using this and how you're going to plan to manage interface table integration down the road. The next and the most biggest one we think are rebuilding functionality for validations. Now, validations for EPMA applications were very, very thorough. And we've included a link over here to be able to take you to the vast list of validations that were available in EPMA. But it's important to remember that these validations were very critical to understanding where your metadata failures were. And I think that, EPMA, if there's one awesome thing they did was have a very extensive check to make sure that, things like invalid characters, member naming conventions, alias, member name checks, duplicate aliases, all of that was very thoroughly covered. And I think they took it a further step where they validated property selections in the application to understand exactly, if I have, base level data storage property, what is the value, never share settings for S-base applications. So a lot of these things, I know that some DRM users, they had to build these checks and balances in manually. And so this was a pretty neat thing that EPMA did and saved customers a lot of consulting time when implementing EPMA over DRM. So again, we're not expecting that DRM Light is going to include these for you. Similar to other DRM implementations, you're going to have to build probably a lot of these out of the box. Just when you get started. For us, for EPMware, we do include all of the standard validation. So the stuff that you get in the admin guide, we include that out of the box. And that comes along with the direct deployment that you get to the target application. So on day one with the EPMware, you're up and running, you can just activate the validations and you've got all the standard validations for the applications up and running right away. Direct deployment. This was also big and not something traditionally that you used to get with DRM. We're also not expecting this to come with DRM Light. So when you created metadata here, you can see in the screenshot that you were able to run your validations in the application library with EPMA. And then you were also able to simply hit the deploy button, and EPMA then went ahead, ran a deployment, and then came back with a series of error messages when it pushed out to the target application. Here in EPMware, we kind of do the same thing. We have our deployment engine. It keeps track of every single deployment. It tells you which request in EPMware deployed out to the target application, and it tells you the success or the failure of that deployment. And it also brings back the log file and shows you that, maybe your property wasn't set correctly, or your validation failed for whatever reason. But in EPMware, validations actually run in real time. So technically, your deployment should really not fail to the target application unless there's some type of communication issue, maybe like the server's down or something. But it's centrally available here for either your administrator or your release engineer to be able to control how that metadata gets pushed out to any subscribing application. All right, same thing goes with the compare application feature. You have that in EPMware, and you also have that in EPMA as well. So future state. Migrating to Oracle Cloud. Now, this is a pretty large consideration. I think a lot of customers are thinking that they're going to try some type of PBCS, ePBCS application, or FCCS. We know that FCCS has gotten considerably better in the last year and is definitely a viable contender for current HFM implementation. So just like all products that has gone through its getting stable state, and we're starting to hear some really great things about it. So a lot of customers are now exploring those applications. I think same thing goes for account reconciliation cloud, also a very good product, and I think it's something that a lot of customers have adopted too. Same thing goes for PBCS as well. So if you're going to have these applications in your landscape, you're going to want to be able to manage these with your current on-premise applications that you haven't yet moved over, and that's what is a really popular transition that we're seeing. Not every single customer is ready to just take every product that they have in their landscape and then just say, all right, we're just going to move this over to the cloud. We're seeing a very phased implementation process. So, they're starting with, either ePBCS application or a FCCS application or just OAC. And it's probably a risk management strategy and probably a wise one. But while that process is happening, it can be a multi-year process to move everything over successfully and have that feeling of stability. But metadata management across these applications is a critical thing that we need to think about. EPMware allows you to seamlessly connect to on-prem and cloud applications, so we can connect to all Oracle Cloud apps, and the same thing with on-prem. So you can have EPMware as a central solution while you manage your migration process over to the cloud as well. Another thing I should just bring up is we're just talking to a customer recently about how they don't have metadata management in their brand new OAC implementation that they're thinking about going to. Things like copying hierarchy from ASO to BSO, that functionality just doesn't exist in OAC. And so, it does in EPMware, and to be able to manage metadata like you do in EAS, you can get that functionality in EPMware. And, we've had customers tell us that it's, if you guys are able to manage that, then we can go to OAC. And so, it's definitely good to hear those types of statements. So we'll skip over our data governance. We got some older slides in here, but of course, EPMware does allow data governance, and I'll just switch over to this slide real quick. So out of the box, step one in EPMware is to configure data governance so that if you have a process where you need a review and approval, you can create a workflow and then allow your request from new metadata to go through a review and approve process before it gets pushed out to target applications. This is also something you may want to think about because, traditionally we're managing metadata with governance workflows using either SharePoint or email. And the more applications you have, this is something that just gets very difficult to deal with, especially when auditors come in. You're going to want some centralized process where you can create a brand new request for metadata once, and then you can be assured that it goes through a validation process. It's pushed out to multiple different applications in one shot. But at the same time, you've had your reviewers and your approvers log in to one application, and they've signed off that what you're requesting makes sense, is being published in the right time frame, and also is what's going to be pushed out to either your UAT or your UAT and your production application in one swoop. Let's jump back over into creating metadata. So creating metadata in EPMware really is like a 5-step process. You can source metadata from an ERP or an interface table, or you can actually just author metadata directly in the EPMware application. You can bulk upload metadata into EPMware as well using a CSV file. And now that metadata will go through its workflow process and then will be pushed out to the target applications. So while it's going through its workflow, reviewers and approvers come in and they can either enrich metadata, add new properties, or simply approvers can come in and they can just sign off on metadata before it gets pushed out to target apps. Now, we monitor the real-time progress of everything in the dashboard so that we know exactly, where metadata sits, who needs to approve it, has it been approved, or is somebody stuck with a approval process. Finally, we do deploy this metadata out to the target application. So in EPMware, again, just like you saw that deployment, you can push a button and then rest assured, or you can even schedule a deployment and then know that your metadata made it to the target application successfully. And then finally, EPMware does come back with email notifications of the success or failure to all the users that are involved in that process. Right, and I think what we're going to do now is just kind of jump over into the application and give you a visual of what that looks like for a few minutes, and then we'll just go into a few questions. So there on the sign-in screen, we do support single sign-on. Of course, SAML supported for our cloud users, SAML 2.0. And so when we log in here, we are taking a look at the dashboard. And in the dashboard, you can see on the left, we've got our sidebar. And over here, we've got our state of current requests. And you can also see the workflows that they're going through. So this request that I'm clicking on here is a request. It's under my actions required. That means that as a user, this is something that I need to take action on. And that might be I need to log in and just simply approve the change that's occurring that somebody submitted. Or I may need to add some properties. So I may be an admin and I may need to add some properties, or I may be a power user and I may need to provide the justification for this metadata member. So depending on what is required in the workflow process is how we'll create this workflow and we'll allow the metadata to flow through this workflow until finally when it gets to deploy, and EPMware deploys it to the target application. Over here on the left is our Explorer, and our Explorer is our way of just simply browsing metadata. Let's go to our sample application. And here I can click on the hierarchy and I can browse through this hierarchy, and I can see that there's members here in gray and members here in red. Members in gray are live in my production app, and members in red are currently in flight in my EPMware application. So this is a member that has been created, and I can see which request it resides in. So I can see that this is in request 1483, and it hasn't been deployed to the target application. And so while users are interacting with EPMware, I can see the changes that they're making and all the properties over here. So now if we go back and let's take a look at a member. So I'll click on this 1857, and 1857 will now open up here in a new tab that'll allow me to see the details of that request. Now up above, we've got some header level details. It tells us, the due date, the description, the priority, and the workflow that this has been submitted to. And here we have the actual changes that are created in this request. So I can take a look at this change, and if I'm an approver, I can browse through these changes, and I can click on this member here. And now EPMware will drill down into this hierarchy. It'll show us the live members and the in-flight members. And over on the right, it'll show us all the properties. So some of these properties may be derived, they may be defined. You can set that up in the configuration of EPMware. You can map them to different applications as well. So you can have ASO mapping to BSO for the properties that make sense. Obviously, we know that not all the properties are the same between the two application types. But the cool thing here is that you can also map applications between Oracle and non-Oracle as well. So, and we'll show you what that means in a minute. Down below here, we've got our activity log, and the activity log keeps track of all of the different changes that are made in this application. And as a user, if I wanted to make changes to this application, I'm simply going to browse my hierarchy here and come in, and I'm going to right click, and then I'll be able to create a brand new member. So if I go here and I create a brand new member as a child, and we say, here we go, give me Gizmo. And a real-time validation kicks in and says, hey, you can't create that because this member already exists in the products dimension. And this is an example of real-time validation in EPMware. And it's not only restricted to the validations that we were talking about before out of the box, but custom validations as well. So I can come back here to my new member name, and I can prefix ACC underscore automatically using the logic builder in EPMware. So this will ensure that ACC underscore always is either typed in by me or it's automatically derived and added to the member. So I hit OK over here. And now this brand new member is added into my hierarchy. Now over here on the right, I can see I've got properties that are default properties that are here. And this is one of the cool features that you get with EPMware is this intelligence is all built in. So the default properties that you're used to seeing in EPMA, those are automatically there, and you don't need to do anything to continue to maintain those. Also, the alias tables are also available, and we have the capability of doing a alias and member name validation to make sure that you've got unique values in those alias tables. So that validation also comes out of the box. Up above over here, let's talk a little bit about bulk upload. So if I don't want to right click and make all the changes manually here in my bulk upload, or sorry, in my request, I can always go and click on the bulk upload. And this will allow us to download a CSV template and populate that CSV template with the changes that we want. So we've had customers build entire hierarchies or entire dimensions using the bulk upload, or simply just create a smaller file with 25 to 50 changes in that file. right? And so now when we're complete, we can do a few different things. Number one, we can add attachments supporting evidence to this file. We also have the capability of doing the most easiest thing, which is just simply submit this into the hierarchy. Now, one thing that we didn't talk about here is our category. So here we have our default category, which has our properties available. Now, if we wanted to use a full-fledged data governance solution, we can very easily just hide all of the rest of these properties that you see here and only expose the first three to the end user. So our end user is a bit different. You know, sometimes we may have end users that are just users out in the field that are analysts and running reports in applications and requesting metadata. Some of our users may be power users, and you know, we'll structure EPMware implementations accordingly based on who the end user is. But finally, I'm going to take this request and I'm going to submit this into the workflow, and that's when the workflow process in EPMware takes over. And let's just find a request that actually has some approval. So here, if I click on this, you can see that this request has gone to a simple workflow of just a deploy only. And it's got its final approval stages to make sure that it's been deployed. So again, you can create any type of workflow that works for your organization, or actually that may work for that dimension. And that's actually the most popular thing that we've seen. Here, I can also click on pending approvals and I can see who are my approvers that are waiting in line for deployment of, or to assure that this stage has been completed. And if they haven't gone through this stage yet, I can just email them quickly and notify them that they need to log in and they need to make some type of change. Right. So here we've got a few other options. Workflow allows us to build new workflows. Logic Builder allows us to create new or custom validations. Of course, any of the transactions in EPMware are available in the audit module. And so we can click on the audit module into reports, and we can click on, let's say, metadata, for instance, and we've got all these different options here where we can compare hierarchies, compare members. We can just export our hierarchies, with properties as of a certain date. We can flatten a hierarchy, other reports, request basis. So you can pull out a full activity log. You can find out for governance purposes, request lines with property details. And there's a large number of reports in here that allow us to understand exactly what were the changes that were made to our series of applications, who requested them, who approved them, when were they deployed. And a lot of our customers actually will allow their auditors to just simply have access to this module only and allow them to run whatever report. So this takes away the pain of having to provide all of this detail in a format or exported out of our emails to auditors. And so it's a kind of self-service, and that's the way we've designed the entire EPMware application. Right, so we're going to pause here on the demo, and if there are any questions, of course, you know, you can type them into the chat box and glance over and see if we've got anything. I don't see any questions in here just yet, and so I think what we can do is wrap up the presentation for today. So of course, if you have any other questions, please feel free to you know, contact us at epmware.com. I'm seeing just a question real quick over here. So what's the back end for EPMware? So EPMware does sit on top of Oracle database if you are an on-premise customer. So Oracle database is required. If you are on the cloud, Of course, backend database does not matter. EPMware is built entirely in Java, and the on-premise version is operating system agnostic. So definitely would love to have you guys reach out to us and have us help you have a conversation about your current EPMA environment and how to help you provide the best metadata management and data governance solution. Whether you're staying on 11.124 right now, or whether you're actually going to go to 11.12 or sorry, 11.2 and take advantage of all the new features and functionality that Oracle would offer. Same thing goes if you're going to, start venturing out into the cloud and you want to be able to manage on-premise and cloud metadata in one platform. We'd love to have a quick conversation about what that means for your organization and how quickly we can get that up and running for you. So again, thank you so much for joining us today on this presentation. And we'll be publishing this online. Again, if you want to reach out to us for a detailed demo, just go to epmware.com and you can find out details for requesting a demo right on our homepage. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and have a great week.